Kashmir is one of the biggest stories of the year 2019. In February, the world came close to a nuclear showdown. Pakistan shot down at least one fighter jet of the Indian Air Force and captured its pilot. In September, the UN Security Council held its first formal meeting on Kashmir in 55 years. Not a single permanent member of the UN Security Council vetoed, despite all the efforts of the Indian government. And in August, India illegally annexed Kashmir. We end the year 2019 with India setting a new world history, the only democracy to have imposed the longest curfew, the longest internet shutdown, the longest siege of a population of 8 million people, of course, all Kashmiris. And we end the year with this huge record. So it's a big thing. Kashmir is a huge story, and it will decide actually many things in this region. We have the world's second largest multilateral organization, the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, is studying right now to hold a major meeting on Kashmir. It's a big thing that not a single member, permanent member of the UN Security Council in the meeting on September 16, 2019, vetoed a formal meeting on the situation in Kashmir. That meeting, of course, there was no consensus on what to do next. It was a closed-door meeting. Both India and Pakistan were not invited in this meeting. The world is confused what to do next. These are two nuclear powers, Pakistan and India, involved in this conflict. And India, in 72 years of the conflict, has failed to resolve this conflict. And the Indian officials have failed to convince President Trump, President Macron of France, other world leaders that they can and they're capable of resolving Kashmir conflict. They're not. They have failed to resolve Kashmir conflict in 72 years. There is very little chance that they can resolve this conflict now. India has almost lost control of this territory, Kashmir. It is unable to control it. Imagine when you have nearly 1 million soldiers in a territory and you have a curfew imposed for more than 4 months with an internet shutdown, and you're unable and unwilling to remove this and lift this curfew because of only one reason. And the reason is the day India lifts this curfew, Kashmiris will be on the streets and they will be showing the world that they do not accept forceful and forcible annexation with India. So the only solution right now in front of world powers, it's a big thing. The UN Human Rights Council, the United Nations is seized with this dispute, but has been silent and was not taking up the situation in Kashmir for almost more than half a century. But in last year, in 2018, and this year in 2019, the UN has released 2 reports on Kashmir, major reports that cover major human rights violations by India in that territory. It's a big deal. It's a big story. But the question is, what can the world really do to resolve this conflict? What can really be done? And the only solution, really, before the world is to conduct a referendum in Kashmir that would decide what the Kashmiri people really want, because India has failed really to assimilate and integrate the Kashmiris despite its illegal military invasion and occupation of Kashmir beginning in 1947. India had ample time to demonstrate that it can win over the Kashmiris. India has failed in doing that. It's a major test for the international law, and it's a great thing that the world media is covering what's happening in Kashmir. There is not a single major world news organization and not a single country that accepts the Indian government narrative that Kashmir is a part of India. No matter where you go, and no matter who you speak to, Kashmir remains a disputed region, and it's a conflict that is pending resolution. And the very fact that you have world leaders like President Trump, like President Macron, like Chancellor Angela Merkel, like Boris Johnson, like members of the Pakistani parliament, the British parliament, the French parliament, the American, the US Congress, that you have all these people talking about Kashmir, it means it's a disputed region. And unlike what Indian officials say, that this is an internal matter of India that nobody should talk about. So basically, humanitarian media coverage, a humanitarian intervention has started in Kashmir, but the world awaits a political resolution that would satisfy the demands, the thirst of the Kashmiri people, brave people, amazing people. For 72 years, they've been demanding liberty, freedom, and justice, and it seems now that they will get it.